Dear BalkanPod listeners, I'm Dilek Kütük from Turkey. Today I'm with Dzemil Hodzic, who is a Bosnian war survivor. Currently, he is on a mission to keep memories alive with his Sniper Alley project. You can find it on Twitter. During the brutal siege of Sarajevo, Dzemil and his family did not have the means to take any photos. And sadly, the last photo he has with his brother is from 1991, before the war began in Bosnia. Through the idea that photos last forever, now he's trying to collect all photos around the world. If I have to say that, today we will not talk about the war. We will talk about Sniper Alley project, which is really respectful initiative. Welcome to BalkanPod, dear Dzemil.
Thank you very much, and hello to your audience. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really glad to be with you.
I'm also really thankful to you. You accepted my invitation. I hope it will be great discussion and I hope they will enjoy to listen this. Could you just tell us your story? How you decided to create such a great platform for photos and to share people's memories?
So when it comes to project and how I started it, I don't know exact date because I was collecting these photos over the years, like random websites, Facebook, Pinterest. And some of the photos I would see over and over again. And nothing was planned. And I didn't do this out of boredom, but I was just maybe subconsciously trying to find my photo from that period. And sometimes I would find photos that kids in those photos, they would look like me. And I would get happy. And then I realized it's not me. So at some stage, I started to notice some names on these photos or credits or descriptions of the photos, and I started to see some photographers. So I thought to myself, I could save these photos and maybe just see how many I collect. So that's maybe 2017, 2018. I didn't plan anything big. And as I started organizing, I put them in folders, I put them in by dates, maybe location. And in the beginning, there was a list maybe of 30 photographers. And I thought to myself, that's too many. And what's interesting today, I have 240 photographers on the list, and we have 80 photographers on our website, and at least 20 to 30 photographers are pending. So they promise to send me photos, but they are busy. So every now and then I get a few photographers, some photos, and I upload them. And as I was collecting and doing these like mind map, so to say, of photos, my friend Gio came one day for a coffee and I showed it to him. I showed him folders and I thought, this looks interesting. Guardian has something they call That's Me in the Photo. So you have these articles where people recognize themselves in famous photos and then they contact the Guardian and they publish it. My thing is kind of reverse. I would put the photo and then people recognize themselves. So my friend Gio, he suggested that I start the project. And at first I didn't like that idea at all. I was reluctant. But he said, just write it and let's see how it goes. So when I wrote my story, my first draft of my story, I could see the vision and project working, but I hated the idea of sharing it with the world. I would say it took me 8 months to launch it because I was debating it with myself, how to make this not to be about me, not to be about Dzemil. I kind of took the risk for the sake of the greater good and sacrificed my comfort zone, if you can call it that. This project was always greater than me. I mean, it's, as I said, it's not about me as a person, but rather about me as a survivor, as a kid who lived through the war and survived it just like any other kid. So my story is not mine only. It's not about me. It's about all of us who's supposed to be killed, but somehow we survived. So I don't use the victim terminology. I use the survivor terminology here because we are the survivors. So my voice is a voice of all of the kids from Sarajevo. And my brother's story is the story of all other kids who were killed, 1,601 of them. So that's how I started all of this.
What is the meaning of photos for you? What do you feel people reach you?
For me, it's a memory. Like for me as a person, as an average person or a normal citizen of the world, right? And I value photos. I value it a lot and I want to preserve it for myself and for my community. So if I talk about any photo from my life, it's really important for future generations, for my families, that you want to preserve the moment, whether it's a birthday party or graduation, whatever. And most of us, we think that way. It's a memory. And usually people see it as such, all of us. But most importantly, it's a document. It's a witness of time, something that we will outlive, and something that will stay forever as a proof, not necessarily for crimes and atrocities we survive, but something to teach new generations about one period of our lives, sadly dark period of our lives, but something that's important to be preserved. I work as a video editor, and I consider myself a journalist. So maybe it was my occupational hazard, because I deal with the moving pictures. So at some point I started to shift my focus on still photos, and that's how I see them. So I hope everyone else will see it as important as I do and get engaged and help me to build this database.
I know that you experienced that war. I'm just wondering, what do you say to such argument that republishing photos perpetuates the bedtime memory, in a way, on the grounds that initially the photography was part of that brutal war?
I guess that's the first thing we think of, and that's true for so many people. But then you have people who were born at that time, who got married at that time, who got their first bicycles or whatever, or who graduated during the war. So I don't want to romanticize this period and sound weird, but the fact is some memories during that time are beautiful. And that is to show that we maintained our humanity. We didn't change and became savages like our perpetrators. We had concerts, we had fashion shows, and we kept our spirits alive. So it's I would say, fine balance when it comes to photos, at least, to show that those times don't represent only trauma. And majority of these photos, at least, that we collect and show are reflections of our defiance and our dignified survival, our resilience, our brave mothers and sisters, nurses, doctors, civil engineers. There are so many people who were behind the front line, behind the curtain, so to say, who defended our country and helped us survive. These photos show civilized people's struggle against the barbarism, and they need to be, if you look closely and use your brain, warning, because we are surrounded by those who would repeat it again if they could. And that's how I see it when it comes to showing photos. And when I get photos of dead kids and massacres, I don't show them on the website. I don't show them on my social media, out of respect for the victims. And those who need to see them, they can see them. They are archived, they are kept alive, because those are the proof of the war crimes Serbs did to us. So I try to, it's a stupid word, but I try to keep the balance when it comes to positive and negative stories.
Do you make up stories in your dream as you see the photos, and also how people reach you to share their photos and how you find these photos, collections, archives? Could you just say us some, technical method that you use?
So when I started with Instagram, and I noticed there are many photographers on Instagram, and they are very active. Some of them I contacted, and some of them immediately replied. Some of them, even today, after 2 years, they didn't open their messages because either they are busy or someone else is dealing with their account. Maybe it's not them behind that account. And then I decided that I need to use all the major media social media accounts like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I have, but it's used for different purposes. So I would say 40% of photographers, at least that I was interested in, are on Facebook, 30% Instagram, maybe maybe 25% on Twitter, and 10% of them are nowhere to be found, actually, and it's really difficult. So I have to ask friend of a friend of a friend for an email. So email is one way, and sometimes they don't reply, so I don't know if the email went to junk. So, but the difficult part, as you said, I had to push a lot in order to get at least some kind of a contact. And once you get the contact with one photographer, I try to reach others through him, or I buy books. I watch documentary films. I research their exhibitions, and through connections they had, I tried to contact them. And now I'm in a contact with at least 50 to 100 photographers, maybe even more, through this project. And I have to say all of them are amazing, and they are willing to help, and they offer their photos. I guess it's a human project. It's not commercial. So I'm not doing this for myself or for money or for fame. So they see it as something they want to be part of. And I'm really happy for that, because if it was otherwise, I guess it would be really difficult to get in touch with them, because they get calls for all sorts of stuff. I don't want to sound like complaining, but it's just an interesting detail. So there are photographers I contacted 2 years ago, and they didn't open their messages. So I'm not angry with them or anything. But then there are photographers that I was waiting for at least for a year, because they are super busy or they are on assignment. And I always tell them I'm not in a rush. I'm just interested that I got in touch, that they are alive. And at some point I'll get those photos, because out of 240 that I have on a list, 20 of them are dead. And for some of these sadly passed away, I cannot find anything, because it's very difficult to reach their families, or they died like 25 years ago. And that's the difficult part.
At this point, I would like to ask that, did you meet any family or person after you share photos and they reach you and they find you like spontaneously when you share their photos, which they forget? So could you share such story with us if you have?
So I would have a lot of them if it wasn't for COVID. So I get lots of emails, private emails or private messages that are not public. And a lot of things happen behind the curtains, because there are people who are not comfortable talking about this. So when they recognize themselves in a photo, they send me email asking for a few more if I have, or to give them email from a photographer, or to give them a higher resolution of the same photo. So if I was back home, and if it wasn't for COVID, most probably I would meet these people, and we would either make an interview or a story out of it or something. Same goes with photographers. I did 5 interviews, and 3 of them are on our YouTube page. 2 of them are still in the editing process. But I have to say I only met 2 photographers. Same again, because of COVID, I was not in Sarajevo for almost 2 years. And that's the difficulty that we are going through now. And a majority of these photographers, they had plans to travel to Sarajevo, but they didn't because of all of this. And I was thinking to go visit them. So let's say, regarding your question, I'll give you one detail. And I wouldn't wait a second to go to Italy and meet Luigi. There was 6 photographers at my brother's funeral, and 5 of them I identified. 2 of them are dead, sadly. But I was missing the 6th one, and I had only low res photo from my brother's funeral, because it was from a tape. It was a screen grab. So I posted it on Twitter and Facebook, asking for his identity, and nobody knew. Like some of them, now I know some of them were his friends, but they couldn't recognize him. So one photographer, he said that might be Luigi Baldelli. And I contacted Luigi because I was sending him emails before, so I know who he was referring to. So I said, hi, Luigi, this is Dzemil. Mario thinks you were the one at my brother's funeral. Do you know anything about it? And he says, when was it? May the 6th, 1995. He says, I was in Bosnia. Let me check. Give me 1 hour. In 1 hour, he calls me back from his countryside house from Italy. And he says, yes, that's me. And he was sending me contact sheet photos. So because of COVID, he couldn't scan it. But finally, I found him. He has the photos from my brother's funeral, photos that nobody ever saw for the last 25 years. I have photos from my brother's funeral, but this gives me another dimension, and I know all 6 of them. So I was planning to go to Italy to meet him, maybe do an interview and thank him in person, if you will. I have those photos that are not public. Like I'm telling this to you for the first time, and nobody knows about it. So there are a lot of these, but I don't share them because I don't know how other person feels about it.
Actually, when I see your photos, firstly, I think that this is not a war photo. This is like a photo for hope, photo for purpose. So, how you choose the photo to publish? I don't know. I'm feeling really hopeful when I see your photos.
When I post photos of killed children during the war, those are the documents, those are the proofs of the war crimes. And those are the photos that show that those kids who were killed, they have a name, they have a last name, they have an age. And I try to remember them and keep the memory of them alive. On the other hand, we have all sorts of photos of kids who are alive, who survived. And I want to show how they played football, how they had their childhood during the war. So I want to show our resilience in a most powerful way I can. And I hope the project will go to that direction, because at the moment I have no idea where it will go, because the possibilities are endless, because there's a possibility of a video or a film or a book or an exhibition. So we'll see. But as you said, they give you hope, and that's true, because none of the contacts I got, except two, all of these kids in these photos so far are alive, and they are grown-up, successful men. So it is to say that we are here, still standing. Your mission didn't succeed. There are people who don't read my story, and when they contact me because of the photo. And there were two cases where people contacted me for the photo of their siblings, in both cases brothers. They died after the war, and they didn't have any photo during the war, so I really surprised them. They said I took them back. So they start explaining to me how they felt, and I cannot tell them because I know how they feel, because I would feel like that if I found my brother's photo. So I'm really happy that by doing this mission that started from me, I'm actually making someone else really happy, and I'm doing something for them that I wanted to do for myself. So I can say that my mission is already accomplished, because at least 30 people are happy because of this, even if we stopped today at this very moment.
I'm sure that you have a great number of photo sources in Turkey due to the fact that many Bosnians immigrated to Turkey during the war. So did you find any Turkish photographers or journalists who have been in Bosnia during the war and share photos with you? Or do you want to say something for them here?
So my goal was to translate my story into as many languages as possible, and one of the languages was Turkish, and I was hoping that in that way I would reach Turkish audience and maybe find photographer. Sadly, so far I didn't find anyone from Turkey when it comes to photography or photojournalism. But who knows? Maybe there are, because I ask people, I read books, I buy books. So there's only one journalist I didn't contact her that I know of, Serif Turgut, and I didn't contact her. So maybe I should contact her to see if she has maybe some contacts. But sadly, none of the Turkish photographers that I know of. So maybe there were. Usually, for example, when I don't get in touch with photographers, or I cannot get in touch, at least I have them on the list. So out of 240, I don't have anyone from that part of the world. I have to say no Syria, Egypt. Sometimes I organize them by countries. So no, only one from South Africa when it comes to, only one from Brazil, only one from South Korea. So no Japan, no China, no Malaysia. It's very interesting. 2 from Russia, 2 from Greece. All of the Scandinavia had at least 2 each. So it's a interesting. I have a map in my head of who's from where and whether, but from Turkey, none. But hopefully with this podcast, we will read some. You never know.
I'm really hopeful for this. And also, Şerif Turgut is really great journalist. Actually,
Yes.
She was the first woman war correspondent during the war. So I'm sure that she will hear our voice. Dear Dzemil, thank you very much for this awesome story.
Maybe I didn't say it enough, and maybe that's why people don't contact me enough when it comes to stories. When I now I'm talking about Bosnians, because whoever interviews me, I feel like they are interviewing me because of me, but then I have to explain it's about the project. So I might be representing other kids, but I don't want the fame of it because I'm just one of them, and I could say I survived, and there are people who didn't survive, and maybe we should talk about them as well. So I could say something about the healing. So sometimes I think of all of this and about the project and about people contacting me. I don't think this heals anything, or because the pain cannot go away, but it makes it easier for me because I'm not alone. Through the project and with doing this project and with all these emails I receive, I've realized I'm not alone. So what I would like to finish this podcast with is, if more people join me, we will make it bigger, better, and more importantly, we will preserve what we went through. So it's not about one person, me or someone else. It's about all of us. It's about our community, and it's about our history.
I really didn't imagine such a great words to finish our podcast. So I really would like to thank you. So I'm really nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm privileged and honored to be with you. And hopefully after COVID is done, we will meet in person.
Okay. Dear listeners, see you next week, same day and same time.